Hey, what's up everyone? Matt Montanez here, and today I'm bringing you this awesome plugin by Plugin Alliance and Brainworks. It's called Master Desk, and this plugin is dope. So it's not something that I would say it's 100% my favorite that I use on every mix like some of the other plugins that I've been showing you guys, but this one here, it definitely came in handy and it really made this record work. I got to mix and master a record called Looking for Love, and it's the theme song to Tyler Perry show Sistas. And it's not a very big record at all. It's pretty small, so there's 24 pieces. That's including a 2-track for a reference. And it's really sweet. So when I mixed this record and I sent it back to Chizzy, he's produced and co-wrote this record, and was like, he loved the mix, except there's one issue, was the breakbeat. And that's what I really want to show you guys, is what I did for the breakbeat using Master Desk. So let's break down this plugin first. Let me play this record first before we dive into here, so you can just hear like I'm gonna just play, I guess, the hook section here, or the pre-hook.
My girls hold me down, and them boys mess around. I know I'll be alright. Yeah, my girls keep me steady when my love life is a headache. We're going out tonight, 'cause I'm looking for love.
So that's the record. Let's jump into this plugin now, right? So here we go. Let's pull up Master Desk. Like I said, I'm bypassing mine so you guys can see the settings later, and we can just really focus on this plugin. The way this plugin works, at least the way they recommend it, is you follow the steps. You got 1, you got 2, and then you got 3. Everything else is optional in this plugin, like using the parallel compression, using the de-esser, the stereo enhancement here, the mid-side chaining, mid-sides, the resonance filter. All this is all optional, but they want you to play your record.
My girls hold me down.
And then they want you to boost the volume up basically between 8 and 6 here, 8 dB and 6 dB. And that range, basically the 6 is for like CD mastering, and then the 8 is for streaming purposes, because if you go past a certain loudness for streaming, they'll actually compress your record down and lower the volume, and then it just makes your mix or master sound like crap. So you want to kind of stay in that range. I usually pull in my own meters, the WLM meter, I believe it is. Yeah, the WLM meter, and go off LUFS for my master. So I kept it up here anyways, even though I used that. So they want you to do that, and then they want you to move with this foundation. And this foundation, it's like a tilt EQ. So it's setting up like how you want basically the foundation, the bass, and so you want to think about it like bass sits here, then you got your mid, so your lows and bass, then you got your mid sitting on top, and then your high sitting on top. So they want you to set the bass so you can add, you can pull out bass, or you can add some bass. And basically the EQ just tilts. So I don't got a tilt EQ, so I can't really show that, but just think about it like if you're adding bass, then the highs come down. If you're pulling out bass, then the highs go up. That's pretty much the sound of that. And then you got your tone stack. And the tone stack is actually dope. You can really boost the heck out of this to 30 or pull out 30, and it doesn't really jack anything up. And the reason being is these are going in such small notches. Pretty much if you go all the way to 30, you're only adding 3 dB total. If you pull out 30, you're taking away 3 dB total. And that's for the bass, mids, and treble. The presence, on the other hand, is adding 6 dB. So halfway point at 15 will be 3 dB. So the cool thing is like you're really getting real precise in these movements. So here's the stock EQ band. So basically if you're adding 30, you're only adding about that much. And I'll do that. So you're only adding about that much when you add 30. And then the same thing is when you pull out 3, you're pulling out that much, which is cool, except the presence. The presence is going to be about 6 right there. And then when you pull it pulls out 6. And to do that trick where it just flips it over, how I'm doing it right now, and it just jumps over to the opposite, is you just hold shift and click it. And that's pretty much it. They say that's all you need to do to master. And that's cool, but you might want to set your output trim to like 0.2 just to prevent any kind of clipping, because sometimes some of those peaks still leak through. So I don't use the plugin that way at all. And that's because you got so much other stuff. Like if they just wanted you to use that much stuff, then why add all the other stuff, right? If they wanted it that simple. So let's get a little deeper into this plugin now. Of course, you're gonna raise your volume and put it like, this is how loud I need my sound. Then of course you do want to set your bass. That's great. But for me, I wouldn't jump to the tone just yet. And the reason being because you have these compressor modes, and these compressor modes all have a certain sound, color, and characteristic. Pretty much one is the heaviest compression, and then 4 is the lightest compression. For me personally, I would set my compressor first before I jump into this EQ section here. Of course, I would start heavy and then jump down to 4 to hear the lightest, and then go between the two. And if I set on one of the middle ones, then I'm going to toggle back and forth to hear those characteristics. But of course, you can go through all of them. Of course, you want to set your output trim, which is your limiter. Then you have Compressor Link. And Compressor Link is meaning you're going to have the left and right channels connected. So basically, if the left side, the left channel has a peak and the right channel doesn't, and they compress the left side, then the right side is going to get compressed too. And that's cool to keep things even. But at times, like if, let's say the left side is compressing a lot and the right side's not, you're going to start getting pumping into your mix and it's going to sound weird and horrible. So you want to keep that unlinked for the most part if you have a lot of peaks. If it's something soft, like let's say it's kind of like a ballad record and not a lot of peaks are really coming through, or like some kind of pads or something you're using this on, then you will want to keep it linked because there's not going to be too many peaks, so it just sound even overall. For the limiter turbo, it's going to be more aggressive on that compression, and it's really going to just like most likely boost it up a little bit, and it's going to really crush those peaks. I would say that's better for like real heavy stuff, but nothing like I'm working on, like pop stuff. I would always leave the limiter turbo off. To me, it doesn't really do anything for me, and the reason being is because when I was listening to this, the compression is actually pretty fast for this plugin. Then I went back to look into the documentation, and then they said the release time is like 10 to 13 milliseconds, so it's like super fast. So it was just being weird for me, and like I said, I couldn't really get this to work for mastering, but I did get it to work for this breakbeat section. The resonance filters, and these resonance filters are cool. Like you can set it to 160 or 315 or off, and basically all it's doing is just cleaning up that low end. And I'll play it on the breakbeat here so you can hear it. So playing it on the breakbeat now, and with the auto solo on, the auto solo is going to make it so you can just hear what it's filtering out. And so if I go to 160, of course it's lower, and 315 is going to be more, it's going to get more to the mid range. And then it can really add some definition to the overall mix. And that's the same thing for the high. So it's 6666 and 314. So it's really cool if you have a lot of like real bright cymbals going on, you can slap this bad boy, or if the snare's kind of hitting a little too much in your face, you can put it to 315. At least that's what I would do. And for the de-esser, it's really taking care of those highs and those S's and the simulants for cymbals and stuff. And if I add it into a certain point, you'll be able to hear it, but we gotta push this. Let's see. And there it is, that's, and let me play that again. And that's pretty much what the de-esser, so it's really calming that down, and it's just a hair, which is really cool for mastering and stuff. That's why it's a Master Desk plugin. Let's mess with this foundation just so you can hear what that's doing. So when I pull out the 30, you're gonna hear that the kick drum is really gonna fall in the back of the breakbeat, and then when I add the 30, it's gonna be more up front, and it's gonna sound more bass heavy because, like I said, it's just a tilt EQ. Very cool, very easy to understand. And then I'm just keeping the compressor mode on heavy just so everything just sounds right, I guess, for now. Mono Maker. Mono Maker is dope. I love Mono Maker. So what Mono Maker is doing is, if you have it all the way down to 0, it's off, but everything from 20 hertz to whatever you set this to is going to be mono. So that's really cool. So if I set this 300, so 300 hertz and down is going to be mono. And I think that's so cool because it's not really jacking up the mix either. It's just keeping those frequencies in the center where it should be, especially for like vinyl and stuff. You don't want to kill your vinyl. So doing this really helps to save stuff like that and keep the mids or the center to be real big and full with that bass. And then we got stereo enhancer, and I like stereo enhancer because I use a lot of different kinds of width plugins. Like I've used Wider by Polyverse, I've used the S1 Imager, I've used Air Width and things like that. But this one, it doesn't add mud to your record. So right here, you're going to be able to listen to those hi-hats, and they just kind of expand a little bit. So they just kind of like get out of that spectrum, and it's really, really dope. So I like that. And that's what I used for this record, because so going back to this, when I sent the record over, this is the whole entire mix, except I didn't have Master Desk on yet, and I sent it over to Chizzy. He checked it out, and he liked it. He's all like, everything sounds great, but that breakbeat, can you make that wider? And I was like, yeah, I can make it wider. And that's when I pulled out Master Desk, and here's the settings for that. So I kept the link on, and that's just because for this record, the left and right sides, they're exactly the same. The peaks aren't different, everything's the same. So I left that on. I toggled between the 4 different compressors, and I like the characteristics of 2. It wasn't super heavy, but it actually gave it some nice tone overall. I brought the output trim down, and of course I set my volume, and you'll see the volume right now. Bouncing around between 8 and 7, closer to 8. I didn't touch the total harmonic distortion. Let me explain what that is. Basically, the total harmonic distortion, that's what it's doing. It's adding distortion to the mix like an analog sound. And the more you add to it, it couldn't actually glue your mix together a lot, like real cleanly. So it's nice to do it like on the master bus. Before this, I felt like it wasn't necessary to do that, to just leave it at the default. You can push it to like 43, up to 40 and bring it down to off. But I left it at 60. I thought it was still adding something, but it wasn't really anything else that I needed from the default. Then we got the foundation. I added just a little more low end for that kick because I felt like it needed it, which is just 2 up. I didn't use the resonance filters. To me, it was unnecessary. The comp, I love the comp. The comp mix is basically mixing the wet and dry signal for parallel compression. So I put it to 90%. I think it's what, 93? Yeah, it starts off at 93, and I brought it down to 90%. I felt like it was a little too compressed because I wanted it still to have some dynamics. So I brought that down, especially because I added the stereo enhancement. I left the bass at 0 and brought up some mids and some treble, which I should have demoed that. I'll go back and we'll demo so you can hear where those are actually doing. And of course, some presence. Mono maker I left off. I didn't feel like I needed it. I felt like the foundation took care of everything. And just the stereo enhancer, I put it to 27%. And even just that little bit, it really adds to this track. I'll play it and I'll just bypass the whole thing. And you can just hear it. It's night and day. Yes, it gets louder for sure, but everything gets a little more punchy. The cymbals get a little wider, which sounds great. You can tell that character just gives it a nice tone overall from the TMT compressor. It sounds great. Watch, I'm going to just drop it down to 4 and I'll go to 2 so you can hear the difference between those 2 sections. For me, it's real easy to hear it. 4 is so light in compression, it almost sounds, for lack of a better word, it sounds flappy, like floppy, I would say, like it's loose, like it's a loose t-shirt or something. It's just flopping around. And then 2 just tightened everything up just enough. 1, to me, like I said, it sounded over compressed, and I'll play them both and toggle back and forth. So here's 2. And it almost sounds like every time that kick hits now on number 1, it's like it's distorting. So I didn't like that. I was like, let's go to 2. It's a little lighter and it sounds great. I'll go between the 3 now, and then you guys just decide what you thought was tight. And go ahead and just drop in the comments like, oh yeah, 4 actually sounded better. I like that floppy sound. So yeah, so that's what I decided to go with. I decided to go with 2, and I can jump to 3. It's just wasn't enough. Like I said, it didn't glue it together for me. Like how I said, 4 was floppy, floppy, and then 3 was just it just didn't glue it enough. So I was like, let's go a little more rough. Here's 3. And it's really that kick drum punches better on 2 than 3. So I like that. So I kept it right there at 3. So I'll play it over here, and it looks like, let's see, the verse comes in, and then it kicks in that break beat. So
Yeah, Mr. Right, I know he winds and dines. Can you show me a sign that the right's on right?
So, and here's without.
Yeah, Mr. Right, I know he winds and dines. Can you show me a sign?
And like you can hear now, that breakbeat's just behind everything. The like cymbal stuff isn't really wide anymore. Like it's not out. Everything's kind of just centered. So I'll toggle it back and forth so you can hear it in context.
Yeah, Mr. Right, I know he winds and dines. Can you show me a sign that the right somebody's out there? 'Cause Mr. Wrong won't get off my line. I spent too many nights with the wrong.
And it sounds so much better with that on. So I'm really glad that Chase is like, hey, can you make it wider? And I was like, yeah, I can make it wider, but how am I going to make it wider? Am I going to just use an EQ? Am I going to use the S1 imager or what? And I was like, well, no, I got Master Desk, and that sounds so good, that stereo enhancement. Let's try it. And it's funny that I even gave it a shot because, like I said, I couldn't get Master Desk to work for me on any masters, but it worked for this breakbeat. And then after that, of course, I had to come in and save my own preset, Looking for Love breakbeat. And let me go back and just demo those EQ settings here so we can hear it. I like to show you guys what everything's doing. So let's pull out the Paz Analyzer. I like that one, Paz Analyzer. And we can actually see what's getting boosted here. So we'll start with the bass. And let's see, so this is our bass right here with everything boosted, and now let's cut it down and see what happens. So it looks like for the bass, it's going to be boosting somewhere about right here, 70 and down. I think I can click to hold it. And as you can see, like our peak, so it does come up to a little bit up here, but it's really more down here. So about 70 and down, it's boosting. Really cool. Let's clear this out. And let's boost the mids all the way. And now let's pull those mids down. This one's a little tougher to actually see, right? It looks like it's going to be boosting here at the 1000, roughly around the 1000 section. Because if you look closely, that line never really hits the orange one anymore. So between 1000 and 2000, I'd say the mids is doing. And let's see that treble. let's bring that treble down. And this one's a lot easier to see. You can see it's over here in the 5,000, 8,000 area that is being affected this time. And let's see this presence. And the presence is going to be the biggest one because, like I said, this one boosts up 6 dB. And as you can see, like all of these are barely getting any kind of boost. And it's really just a few dB, 3 dB. And you can tell definitely it's right here from 8K and up. Yeah, and that's what the tone stack there, the EQ's doing. So when I did mine, like I said, I didn't need much EQing at all. I just felt like, hey, let's get a little bit more out of this. So I boosted it up just a hair. The mids was the main thing, and that was just because when it was doing the stereo enhancement, it was really spreading everything out to make it wider. And that's what we wanted. So all right, everyone, I hope you liked this tutorial, or at least you liked how to use this bad boy. Like I said, for me, I started off with the volume. I messed with the foundation, and instead of jumping to the tone, I went to my compressor if I want it linked or unlinked, and then I jumped to my compressor mode. Then I went to tone and added my stereo enhancement at the very end. So that's how I would use it. You can use it the way the Plugin Alliance recommends. It works, it's cool, it sounds great. For me, it works on break beats, and that's what I'm gonna be using this bad boy on. Probably not for mastering. I'm so used to my mastering chain, but I'm gonna use this a lot more. And don't forget, hit like, subscribe, share this video, follow me, and also go check out this record. It's on Spotify. It's called Looking for Love, and it's under Chizzy Stevens. I'll put a link in the description below. All right, everyone. I hope this helped. As always, keep creating music. Take care.